Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Ask Me Anything. I'm here with Elle Russ, and I'm super excited for two reasons. Number one, we actually made the technology work, even though we were supposed to be live in a different space, and Be Live just kicks my ass every day. But we are here, and she is actually a couple hours down the road in Southern Cal, and I'm in Northern Cal until Sunday. So we were just kind of commiserating on how we wish we were together in the same space. But we have a whole bunch of questions for you, Elle.
Yay, I'm excited. Hey, everyone. I'm excited to answer all these questions.
Yes,
Ask me anything.
we're going to ask you everything. So you got lots of accolades. I don't know if you saw the comments that were left on your talk itself, but I know that it really resonated with a lot of women. This thyroid issue is a biggie. In the overall scheme of health and healing, it seems like I have no scientific, I'm not quoting a legit stat, but it feels like at least half of the women that are struggling with some kind of flabby, foggy, and fatigue have something going on with their thyroid. So this is a really, really big deal. And I just want to kind of offer a frame for this conversation. Then we're going to get into all your questions. You know, I have issues with my thyroid as well. I was diagnosed hypothyroid last year. I've been subclinical hypothyroid for a long time. I also have thyroid nodules. I got emails from people saying, "Do you know that you have nodules on your thyroid?" Yes, I know. I have thyroid nodules. Named him Harry. No, just kidding. He doesn't have a name. Um, and um, the doctor told me that we don't know what causes nodules because they don't know what causes anything. And anyway, so I have the nodules. I don't know if my nodules are ever going away. I've been doing my Epstein Barr protocol, as you guys know, and feel like I'm pretty much out of the woods with that, even though we're kind of doing a couple of things to just make sure. But had a big EBV issue. I've probably had my EBV issue for 30 years plus. And so this is a big deal. This is a really big conversation. I know you guys have a lot of questions about it. There's some typical questions that are coming up over and over in the group. They've been answered in the group, but I'm going to actually ask a couple of the main questions that get a lot of airtime so that that Elle can talk about them here. The main thing with thyroid is, this is what I would say and then I would love for you to share your perspective, Elle. I would say every woman needs to have her thyroid tested. If you're showing, if your T3 is showing below the range, you definitely should explore and experiment with some kind of thyroid supplementation. Elle is obviously an expert on this, and we're going to get into that a little bit in some of these questions. Her talk is awesome if you want to listen to more about it. And I will say that if you have a thyroid issue, you are not going to fix yourself and get well by going on thyroid supplementation. You are going to stabilize yourself, and you've got to do the deeper healing work to really heal and fix yourself. And I know both Elle and I have got some stabilization through supporting our thyroid, and we've both done a lot of deeper healing work. Michelle Norris, who was a guest on the summit, same situation. You know, she's got some stuff going on with her thyroid. She's done supplementing, but the deeper healing work is what really gives you your life back. So there's a couple of sides to this conversation, and I just want to make sure we offer that frame to everyone, because I know we're looking for something quick and easy that's just going to make it better, and I don't want to misrepresent what this journey is going to look like. But the thyroid is massively important. And I'm telling you, within a week of being on thyroid supplementation, my energy, like that crash that I was having at like 2 or 3 o'clock, gone, which was awesome for me. You know, I just would drag in the afternoons. And, you know, finding something that's going to quickly make a difference in your quality of life is such a blessing. And that's what we have with things like thyroid supplementation and the expertise that Elle brings to the table. So Elle, let's start out with the basics. Everyone's asking, if I want to get my thyroid checked, what labs do I run? And I know you mentioned this in your talk, but let's just do a quick run through.
That's right. So first of all, this is also in a free thyroid guide on my website, all written down. But just for you listening now, there are a million tests you can take that obviously can show whether it's affecting the thyroid, right? Lyme's disease, EBV, heavy metals. Okay, but forget all that. If you just want to go and say, is something wrong with my thyroid? You're going to look at 6 main initial tests, okay, thyroid tests. They are going to be as follows: TSH, free T3, free T4, reverse T3. That's 4. Then, if you haven't already gotten tested for these 2, you always want to rule out whether you have Hashimotos or not, because there's some different avenues to go down there if you do have Hashimotos, and there's certain levels of being strict about diet or some other things you can do to lower antibodies if they're high. And those two tests are TPOAB, which stands for thyroid peroxidase antibody, and then also TGAB, which stands for thyroid globulin antibody. And you need to get both tested because oftentimes they only test for TPO, but you could be also positive for the other. Now, the TG1, if you could choose one not to have, that's the more problematic one. Both are manageable, but you need to know whether you have Hashimoto's or not, because occasionally there's times when antibodies are really high out of control. And aside from thyroid hormone being able to help and diet and lifestyle and all the other things we're going to talk about, you might need to enlist the help of something like low-dose naltrexone, which Dr. Gary Forsman talks about in the back of my book, and a lot of doctors use. It's used for drug addicts, but you take a low dose at night before you go to bed, and this can really help lower antibodies. There's also tons of other uses for low-dose naltrexone. Also, too, for Hashimoto's, you really have to stay grain-free, particularly gluten, because we know it ignites the antibodies. So again, you want to rule out the Hashimoto's. So free T3, free T4, TSH, reverse T3, the two Hashimoto's antibodies. Now, in related to that, it's important that everybody get their ferritin tested along with that too. So that's 6 tests, add a 7th, which is ferritin. You can keep going. Ferritin's really important, and it's often the missing link because it's iron storage. If that's not proper, it doesn't matter how many thyroid hormones you throw at a patient, never going to get to where it needs to go. You're going to have issues raising your thyroid hormone. For those that don't know, you never get to your optimal dose right away. You never get prescribed something in a dose and like you're good to go. You have to sort of build your way up with thyroid hormones. You can do it every 3-4 weeks. You can increase in a timely manner. But again, along that road, the increases, there's going to be complications and problems if ferritin is not up to par. Ferritin usually is a range of 10 to 150. You need to be around 65 is ideal, but at least 50 to 100. If your ferritin is well over 100 and you're not taking iron, that is a sign of inflammation, kind of blocking the true ferritin result. And in that case, it's like krill oil or fish oil and other things to de-inflame. And then you can take some other iron tests like percentage saturation, total iron, and things like that. So those are the main ones though. Those 6 plus the ferritin will give a pretty damn good picture of what's happening.
Right. Okay. All right. We're going to dive in because we have lots of questions here. So this is from Sarah. I have no doubt I have hypothyroidism. I need to have my levels tested. Have you heard of any relationship between kidney stones and your thyroid? I've had 1 or 2 stones per year for the past 19 years.
Well, what I would say about that is chicken, egg, we don't know, but I do know this. When you're hypothyroid, you're in a disease state and a bunch of shit goes wrong. You're going to get diagnosed with stuff you didn't have. I got misdiagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome. You will get a disease you otherwise would not likely have gotten. When I was seriously hypothyroid with a reverse T3 problem, I had very high liver enzymes. I don't drink. I don't do stuff that would, and I had very also terrible cholesterol labs. So this is where we get into that conversation of uninformed doctors patching up all of the things that have gone wrong with you because you've been in this state. So Sarah, if you feel like you've been hypothyroid for a while or these symptoms are familiar to you, I wouldn't be shocked that kidney stones might be a result of that because everything is not working properly, including like detox and things like that. So I can't say specifically. I'm sure there's some link, there's almost every link between low thyroid and an issue you would have. And it's because this is a master gland. It's because if this thermostat, not too hot, not too cold, is off in either direction, you are bound to have something creep in and mess with you. And that might be kidney stones as well. So other than diet and lifestyle related to kidney stones, I would say yes, probably. And please get your levels checked, Sarah. You cannot live your life hypothyroid. As Misty was saying in the beginning, she stabilized. I'm good to go because I went through all the levels. Got the thyroid set, then I fixed all the junk, and I'm totally fine. I literally live in a non-hypothyroid state every day, but I do take thyroid hormone in order to achieve that. So this stuff's all fixable. And like Misty said, depending on all of the things that have gone wrong over time, it might take a while. But anyway, please, yes, get your thyroid checked because everything's related.
All righty. Next question. This is a tricky one. This might be one that we need to punt to a doctor, but I'm going to volley it up for you and see if you can make a contribution here. This is from Cindy. Our grandson was born with a low thyroid. They didn't know if it was underdeveloped, hadn't moved to the right place, or even if he had one. He started Synthroid at about 4 to 5 weeks old and is now 4.5. About a year ago, they did a test and found that yes, he did have a thyroid, but it was underdeveloped. Is there a chance his thyroid will ever begin to function normally when meds are doing it for him? The doc intends he take this for the rest of his life, and I always wonder if there's something more we should know. This was a very informative and interesting interview.
Okay, so that's very interesting. I do know someone who has literally half a thyroid gland. Okay, so if your son has half or par or partial, it's still great that he has the gland. It's important to keep that intact if we can. But whether it's going to pump out the right amount of thyroid hormones, that I'm not so sure. And the doctors might be right. I still would look into the other options than Synthroid. Okay, so clearly this is a patient who was told by doctors, this is the medication for thyroid and this is what you take. And that's probably an endocrinologist. And that would make sense because they are Synthroid levothyroxine Nazis and feel that that's the only course of treatment. If it were me and I had half a thyroid working, I would want to make sure I'm also getting some direct T3. So I feel that the move would be to go to a functional doctor and to look into NDT or compounded T4, T3, but a T4, T3 combo. And then also, please look at my free thyroid guide and listen to some of our podcasts that I've done on it because, again, the doctor may check the blood work of your son and go, yeah, he's fine. Here's the dosage, or I'm going to increase or decrease. And then you just go, okay, we need to know, is the T4 converting into T3? Is your son being optimized on this medication? And it's not that people can't get optimized on Synthroid, but most doctors that prescribe it, especially endocrinologists, often don't test free T3s. They're testing TSH and T4 or TSH and free T4. So I would challenge the questioner to please go back to the blood labs, get them from the endocrinologist. If they never tested free T3 or reverse T3 and they're not regularly doing that, you are with an uninformed doctor, and I would worry about your son and get yourself to another doctor who knows what they're doing, because it's very likely he won't be able to fully function with just half a working thyroid without symptoms. Maybe not. There is possible that he could get so in tuned and aligned with health and lifestyle that maybe he would need minimal medication or could get wean off thyroid hormone and see if his own calibrates. But again, when you're talking about literally like an underdeveloped or half of a thyroid gland, that might be a case for, and again, this is a good thing. People talk about thyroid hormones. I know you've had this conversation before with me, Misty, but so many people are afraid of medication, or I don't want to be on medication my whole life. It's different. This is a hormone your body needs to function. Medication is something that manipulates your body in a way it was never intended to, like birth control or these drug ads we see on television. And that's why the side effects might throw up something that looks like coffee grounds, and you're like, what the hell? I have never effing seen. No, seriously, that was like one of those. Seriously, like, who would take that? So it's tough because you think about, oh, I'm on this pill. That's because usually pills and medications are poison and they are bad for us because they're doing something it shouldn't do. When you're talking about hormones, that's not negative. So let's not, it's okay if your son's on it the rest of his whole life. Let's just make sure he's on the right combination, the right levels, and has the right free T3 and just thyroid status so that he won't get hypothyroid symptoms along the way. So my one concern would be, yeah, he's been on Synthroid since he was born. That just tips me off to thinking that the tests are not being done correctly to see if he's really optimized.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep. All right. Good thoughts. Really good thoughts. All right. This is from Janet. I did hear her talk about the connection between the brain and thyroid in regards to being foggy, not finding words, etc. I would like for her to go into more detail about this.
Yeah, this is a good one. So, all right. Brain fog is what everyone has experienced when they have ever had a serious sinus, cold, or flu, where you are staring into space, your brain is literally fogged. You won't feel like the sinus pressure like you would during a cold, but you will feel that kind of staring into space. Nothing seems fun. You don't want to read. You don't want to watch a movie. Nothing is just you. You're just kind of like a spaced out zombie. And that's brain fog. However, the other cognitive things are pretty interesting too. So with brain fog, aside from that, comes with general malaise, lack of motivation, giving up. So if you even think to yourself like you were pursuing something in life or had a passion, and then you start having thoughts like F it, what's it all for? I mean, but for real, and I know those are also depression thoughts, but we have more T3 receptors in our brain than anywhere else. They treat depression with thyroid hormones. And so cognitive abilities, having to reread the same paragraph over and over, not even being able to read or enjoying reading, talking with someone, forgetting numbers. There's a success story in my book that quit her job as in numbers because she started to forget numbers and couldn't do math, and she was afraid she would get fired. So any cognitive abilities, I would have, again, I'm a fast talker in general, so I'm bound to mumble jumble my words or if I'm tired. But for the most part, I couldn't I couldn't find the words to connect, or I was saying them dyslexically. And I've never been dyslexic or had any kind of learning issues or any of that stuff. So any of that stuff, but it would be depression as well. And you can see it in other people. I was able to spot it in a friend of mine who had low Hashimoto's antibodies. Her thyroid looked somewhat normal, but she was eating a lot of gluten and she was really affected. I think, she didn't know she had Hashimoto's. And she didn't, the feeling of one getting dumb and getting old in the brain is not something anyone wants to express to anyone, especially when you're not 90. Okay. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're 90, you're like, I'm losing my shit. Okay. And you probably have no
When you're
shame about it.
when you're 33, it's like,
Or even 43, what doesn't
or
matter,
even
right? So,
right.
yeah.
Totally.
So that's
Totally.
the thought. It's, oh my God, I'm getting dumber. Then I had a friend who said, uh-oh, Aunt Mary, she was, and here's my thing about that. We don't know if Aunt Mary had untreated Hashimoto's. So if you heard my talk with Misty, we don't
Be
know.
nice to Aunt Mary.
Be nice to her. We don't know when all the people in your family,
Compassion.
everyone in your family might be fat, obese, and depressed, and that doesn't mean you will be. That means they probably were with uninformed doctors, never got to the bottom of their stuff. So don't link any mental health issues to a family member and thinking that's genetic. Okay, so don't go down that road. But it's a very scary place to be. And so if anyone's feeling that, reach out, get your thyroid tested. Because that's not one a lot of people express to others or can even wrap their head around. But if you're feeling it, you know it. And it's this feeling of like, I'm getting tired and dumber in the brain and kind of don't care about stuff anymore. And that's depressing as shit, man. I mean, I've been there. It's so depressing. And then you see what it's like on the other side when you have optimal free T3 levels and you feel younger. I feel younger now than I did at age 30 when I first got hit with my first bout of hypothyroidism. And I'm 45. So, and I look younger too, by the way, because hypothyroidism will age the shit out of you. I mean, it is advanced glycation, it's inflammation, not to mention the domino effect of all the hormones and everything being screwed up. This is the master gland. And forget the gland. Let's say the gland's removed, then it's AKA thyroid hormone optimization. So hopefully that answered that. But again, any secret thoughts about oneself and your own mental capacities that you are afraid to express or feel scary, that's usually hypothyroidism, and it's usually fixable.
Yeah.
And you can go on
Alrighty.
Prozac, by the way, so again, mental stuff, someone can be up and down or have anxiety attacks. Having anxiety attacks, if you are getting hit with that for the first time in life and you're like, well, this is weird, that's hypothyroidism. And I never have had an anxiety attack since. I never knew what they were, didn't understand people who talked about them. I started to have them, and that happens because of the adrenal exhaustion that's going on because of the lack of the thyroid hormone. And I literally had panic attacks. So any mental stuff or feeling like you're depressed, you can go on Prozac, but it won't work after 3 months. So, get the thyroid tested. Yeah.
So I want to ask a question a little out of order here because it totally aligns with what you're talking about. So someone in the community is asking about low cortisol, and is it okay to supplement with thyroid medication when you have low cortisol? So you want to kind of unpack that a little bit so that the community understands how these things are connected together.
Sure. Your adrenal. Okay, so cortisol has waves. It's highest usually in the morning. It kind of goes in this up and down. If you are experiencing an extra surge of energy after 6 p.m. and have insomnia, that's usually high nighttime cortisol. Women who are hypothyroid or have adrenal fatigue or both, low morning cortisol is usually the case, and it takes forever to get going. I mean, it is just like a drag to get it together. A couple cups of coffee. Like you don't jump out of bed being like, I'm ready, and you should. And granted, there's the sleepiness. I mean, I wake up and I'm like, but still, I mean, I'm pretty ready to
You're
go.
alert.
Yeah, I'm alert. And so that would take hours. So here's the thing. Your adrenals need T3. They need thyroid to function. They go hand in hand. So a lot of doctors, when you have adrenal fatigue or cortisol issues, will try to treat you with, adrenal herbs and adrenal support to see if the thyroid will then kick back. I've never seen that successfully happen. It's like a couple times, very rare, where someone's just very stressed out in life. They mitigated their lifestyle, got their diet together, stopped the caffeine. Okay, yes, those are kind of obvious scenarios. But when it's been going on for a long time, and there's a success story in my book, Share, her doctor didn't want to give her thyroid hormone, so she was treated for 8 months for adrenals and nothing got better. So then they finally went to thyroid. I could have told them that 8 months was going to be wasted, but that's okay. She eventually went on to have a successful pregnancy. That was her goal. And, of course, side note, you never want to get pregnant unless you test your thyroid, or if you are pregnant, go get it tested right away. So here's what happens. If you're working a normal schedule and you're not like a knife shift person, so you wake up at 7 or 8 a.m., let's say, or even earlier, basically the 4 hours preceding when you wake up is the cortisol production window. So if you're like waking up at 4 in the morning out of nowhere, that's why, because it usually would start at 4 a.m. to 8 or so for most people. So you need the adrenals and cortisol, they need each other. And so that's usually why, if you're on, forget Synthroid for a second, which is T4 only, but if you're on T3 only like me, or you're on T4 T3 combination, which is like Armor, Nature Thyroid, Desiccated Thyroid, usually the morning dose is the higher dose. Makes sense. Cortisol, everything needs each other to get you out of bed. That's kind of the way the thyroid would naturally work. It doesn't pump out everything you need for the day in the morning, but it would do more because that's the beginning of the day. Cortisol is what gets you up and gets you out of bed. So it's very rare that people get to the point where they actually need to take HC, like hydrocortisone. That would be a very serious situation you have to do with a doctor. You could eventually get to a point where once you get your thyroid status up, you will be able to get off of that. But that is really reserved for people with zero cortisol. And that's more rare than not. More often than not, people just have exhausted adrenals. I've had adrenal fatigue twice. It sucks. I'm going to say a side note here. Lots of adrenal support formulas are great. However, I would beware of the ones with licorice root. And the reason I say that is because I had an issue with it. I know a couple other people had an issue with it where I felt it adversely affected my adrenals. So if you want to take a good adrenal support formula, I do like Gaia Herbs. They also make a thyroid support formula that's really good and also has a little bit of adrenal supporting ashwagandha in it. So Gaia Herbs makes thyroid support formula and an adrenal support formula that I think are clean and good. And there's many out there. So once you start to take thyroid hormone, if you're hypothyroid and have horrible adrenals, because that usually goes hand in hand, the adrenals will come back. They will come back. You just need to do everything to support it. That's salt, vitamin C. One of the things you could do to support adrenals is right when you wake up in the morning, salt lick. Is some Redmond real salt or Celtic sea salt right down the hatch. First thing in the morning. And then vitamin C and B. So a good B complex or a methyl B12 folate, So those things are adrenal supporting. I also did decaf for a while. I love coffee. I love tea. I actually have a high caffeine tolerance. I could drink tea before bed, it doesn't keep me up.
I'm the same. Yeah.
But when I went through adrenal fatigue, I switched to decaf, and then it's fine. Then you heal your adrenals and you get it back up. So I would say those are the things to do to support the adrenals. And there is, you can gauge for adrenal sufficiency or insufficiency in my book. You can do it through temps. But again, they go hand in hand. And usually the adrenals, again, unless it's a severe lifestyle thing, everyone's adrenals can get off if you're stressed or you're studying for a medical exam and you've been in 4-hour sleep for a month. Okay. But aside from any of that kind of obvious extra, stuff out there, it's usually a thyroid thing. because when the thyroid gets low, the adrenals respond because they're like, we need to wake this bee up and get her out of bed. So it's outputting cortisol, and that's why you're also craving carbs and everything, because your body's like, we have no energy from anywhere. And so what happens is that the adrenal glands kind of say, F you, I'm tapping out, and they get exhausted and fatigued. So that's another reason connected to why when you're going through this and trying to heal a thyroid, the frustration we talked about, Misty, which is you're getting fat, which doesn't happen to everyone, happens to the majority of people, and you want to try to work out to get ahead of it, and now you're 5 steps back with the adrenals. And people don't realize, and that's why you get the tire around your waist. So if you have a tire around your waist or a belly that really is just like a thick thing, that's no amount of sit-ups, doesn't matter what you do, that's usually adrenals. That was one of my first signs of reverse T3 again, was, oh my God, I keep getting bigger and bigger around my middle, and I had all the other symptoms too. So that's also a thyroid symptom. But again, they go hand in hand. So you can try to treat the adrenals first, but I would say you can do a 24-hour cortisol saliva test and then do those tests. That's like $100. And then you can do the thyroid test and see. You can do both at the same time, meaning support the adrenals while you treat thyroid. You can support
They're not contraindicated.
No.
So that's, I think, the important distinction.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully that all made sense, but they are locked. Adrenals, iron and thyroid, like all of it, and blood glucose, so that's all related. So you've got to get to the bottom of adrenal stuff and rest as much as you can,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Another question. This is from the comments right here in the chat. If you have brain fog, even when you're on natural desiccated thyroid and gluten-free, what do you do?
You send me your lab so I can make sure you're on the right. You can be hypothyroid while you're on thyroid hormones. That's the thing, because you may not be.
And brain fog is not exclusively a thyroid issue.
That's right. Candida. Okay. EBV for sure. Resurgence. Candida gave me brain fog, and it also can really, it messes with sugar cravings and all of that. So you can be eating gluten-free, but did you correct all your gut stuff? And did you do all these other things? Low ferritin. Again, go to the ferritin. Get your ferritin tested where it's at. And maybe all you need to do to make the thyroid dose you're on work better is get the ferritin up. You can do that concurrently, and you just, never take iron close to thyroid. Not because you'll die, just because it'll bind with the thyroid and kind of cancel out some of the
neutralize
thyroid.
It. Yeah.
Right. So hopefully that answered it, or I can go a little bit deeper there.
That's good. That's good. Well, let's make sure we get to all these questions. How do you know that your thyroid hormones are in balance?
Are in balance? Because you feel effing awesome. And you don't have any hypothyroid symptoms, literally. And you can check it against labs too, and temps. So, I mean, honestly, that's the best diagnostic at home is temperature. And
Elle has a great guide in her book on what to do if you really want to optimize your thyroid and get to the perfect dose for you. She explains exactly how to do it in her book, the thermometer to take. It's a little involved.
98.6 in the afternoon. Yeah, it's a little involved. But the thing is that it is temps. It is looking at symptoms, and that's how you know, because you feel great. And when you don't, you check into it. And that might be, oh, maybe I need a little bit more because it's winter now. Oh, I'm feeling weird. You go right to the temps, then you go right to the tests, and then you're like, oh, maybe I need to drop my dose. People on thyroid hormone replacement stay pretty steady and good. The changes that happen might be life changes like menopause or some, other life event that would be crazy with health, or just in general, spring, summer, winter, fall. Yeah. So hopefully that answered that. Yeah.
Yeah. This person, I think these are her diagnoses: hypothyroid PCOS, low ferritin, and low sex hormones. She also has gallstones. She was prescribed LDN. In research, I found that liver work needs to happen, but in what sequence? Should I address my thyroid first? So she's got those several things going on. And the question is, she feels like maybe she needs to heal her liver, but what does she need to go after?
You do it all together.
First? Yeah.
You do it all at the same time.
You're going to start with your gut.
You're going to start with everything.
Diet, environment, and gut is kind of like the foundational things.
Mouth to anus is all you. You got to get on that, and that's, got to clean that up. If you have Hashimotos, you want to do maybe a paleo autoimmune protocol and be really strict for a while. Go back and give me what you said again. The question.
Hypothyroid PCOS.
Okay.
Low ferritin and low sex
Liver.
hormones.
Okay, so when you're hypothyroid, so this happened to me, it happens to a lot of people, your liver enzymes will get elevated. And again, think about it. So sluggish, low, no fire, no metabolism. So it's not burning the fat you're eating. You know what I mean? And that's going to bad places. That's why you can have a bad lipid panel. You can treat it at the same time. You can take milk thistle, any kind of liver cleansing herbs, and do whatever process you need to with the liver. You might just need to, again, to stay away from any liver detox formula, perhaps away from thyroid. If you're taking thyroid hormones, you treat all of it. You can, if you're not on thyroid hormones, you can do the liver and all this other stuff and do that cleanse and then test again in 8 weeks and see, did my thyroid improved? Great. If it didn't, the liver and everything's not going to heal until the thyroid. So then you may have to go to thyroid hormone replacement. Again, this whole game is, you can go search hell and high water and take 1,000 tests. And I'm not saying everyone should go on thyroid hormone. That is not at all the protocol. But if it doesn't heal naturally in a certain period of time, you have to ask yourself, how long am I willing to feel hypo, and wait until it is? Now, in some cases, 8 to 12, 4 months. Okay, maybe that's like, all right, I've already spent 2 years, feeling like crap. I'll wait another 4 months and it could turn around. You have to raise your ferritin or none of what you're doing is going to get better. So you have to take iron. And the best form of iron for everyone listening is ferrous bisglycinate chelate. That's a mouthful. So you can look at Bluebonnet as a brand that sells that form. It's chelated iron. Whole Foods also sells the same. That's the best non-constipating form. You always want to take it with a little bit of vitamin C with a meal far, far away, or 2 to 4 hours away from thyroid if you can. Here's the thing. Your body won't hold on to iron unless you have proper thyroid status. So you could take a bunch of iron. You could try to clean out your liver and do all of this stuff. But if this eventually doesn't play along with it and jump back in the scene, then you probably will have to go on thyroid hormones, then fix all the stuff. And then you can decide, do I want to try to go off thyroid hormones or not? It's not a life sentence once you go on them. But you may have to be on them for life, and that's okay too. So the liver is very important here, and it gets stagnant and messed up when your thyroid status is crappy. So you kind of have to do all of them together. The PCOS should resolve with the ferritin and the hypothyroid. Like the PCOS should absolutely be resolved once the other things get resolved. If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
I answered that.
Yeah. And that's something that actually comes up a lot in the community, because there's some women, it's just like you said, Elle, some women have this belief that they don't want to go on anything. They don't want to go on bioidentical hormone replacement. They don't want to go on thyroid, like it's a suboptimal path. And what I will say experientially, and what I think you were saying too, Elle, is that when your body is in a diseased state, when you're in dis-ease, okay, your body you're playing at a deficit. You are playing this healing game at a deficit, and
you're losing.
Yes. And sometimes, in my experience, the very best gift you can give yourself so that you can get through the 18 month to 2 year healing journey, if you're working with someone good, is support your hormones, support your thyroid. Giving yourself some support. I mean, it keeps the lights on. It keeps you functioning. It keeps you moving through life. It keeps you from being really drugged down into the weeds and into the ditch with all the symptoms that you're experiencing. I'm a huge fan. In fact, when I started working with Ryan Freisinger, who is amazing, and he's the person of all the practitioners that I've worked with, he's gotten me more results than anybody else. And he's like Dr. Forsman was for you, Elle. He's excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay. He's the one that went after my EBV. He went after, we're going after heavy metals together right now. He's had me do a lot of things in between to really support my body, because you can't just, like, from his perspective, and we know, like Dave Asprey did his book Headstrong, that's all about, it's basically all about the mitochondria, supporting your mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, making sure that you've got a good battery to run your body. you know,
And you know
that
what mitochondria can't live without is T3. Okay, so there's no
right,
metabolism when there's no T3.
yes. Well, this
And
is
like,
exactly what happens is our mitochondria as women, because we don't have T3, because we don't have these things that our body needs to function well, our mitochondria weakens. That means our battery gets weaker. Remember when you were a kid and you put the batteries in the record player and it was wah, 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 because there wasn't enough? That's what happens to our bodies when we don't have hormones, when we don't have thyroid hormone, our bodies get weaker. And then we're already in this disease state, which is creating a lot more stress on top of a weak body. And there is not enough in our battery to rev up and heal. Even when we give ourselves the right condition, our body's battery is too weak. So I went to Ryan at the beginning because he's not a fan of hormones. He would just as soon you go through his healing protocol and he's going to kick your hormones back on and get everything working again. And I totally appreciate where he's coming from. But I went to him in the very beginning and I said, Ryan, what you're suggesting, and I love him, and he is not a woman, and he does not know what this is like, you know? So I went to him in the beginning and I said, I respect you. I want you to feel like I'm bought into what you're doing, and I'm going to follow your protocol 110%. And when you ask me to go off of bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, you are threatening my ability to provide for myself. Like I don't function. And I kind of went through, made my case for why this is really important. And he came back in 100% support. And he was like, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. I understand why you want to make that decision. And I totally support you in doing it. And I would say for every woman out there, go after healing. You know, doing thyroid hormone and BHRT is not the end all be all. It's not optimal for me. That's not my goal. I've been on it for years and I continue to try to heal. I want to heal deeper. We all want to heal deeper, but these stabilizing supplements, these stabilizing prescriptions are massive to our quality of life in the meantime.
yeah, I want
Massive.
to highlight that because operating at a deficit is really the way to look at this. So, okay, thyroid status is responsible for everything, but it's our thermostat and temperature. There are so many processes in our body, enzymatic things, processes that happen that need to operate at a certain temperature. That's why we don't have the same body temperature as a lizard or a horse, right? They probably have a whole different set of what their basal should be and their afternoon, but we as humans have a set point for a reason. Okay, so if you're low or high, right? If you're hyperthyroid or hypothyroid, both are inflammation. Both are going to cause a primordial negative soup where a lot of stuff's going to be able to crawl in and jack you up. Okay. So, again, how long do you want to go because you're resistant to going towards getting a pill from a pharmacy, which, I take every day. I've been on thyroid hormones for many years now. And uh, it's not just about the brain. See, when you were saying like, oh, it helps me get through the day, that's true. But I want to just highlight for everyone, it's not about your mind being right to make it through the journey of healing. It's literally about this temperature and everything being, like Misty said, stabilized to provide a platform, a primordial baseline platform by which you can address all this other stuff. You're not going to really be able to get there. Do you know what I mean? If you don't
Yep.
address it. A lot of thyroid symptoms like hair falling out and other things related to that. People will be like, oh, is it this? Is it that? Is it that? It could be 100 things, but it's definitely this. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it could just be low iron, but often it goes hand in hand with the thyroid. So now sometimes there's really simple fixes. Sometimes, I mean, literally, I have seen this. That's why I'm really adamant about ferritin. I have seen ferritin be the only answer for people. Their heavy legs, their brain fog, sex drive issues, they're exhausted, they can't gain weight, and all they have is low ferritin.
Mm-hmm.
And why is that? Because you need proper iron storage to get those thyroid hormones to where they need to go, whether you're taking them out of a bottle or whether they're happening naturally. And so women, think about it, with babies, we bleed. And if you work out on top of that and you're an exercise person like me, then you might be losing more iron than most. Now you get a little hypo or low iron. Now it screws up the thyroid. So again, those go hand, it all goes hand in hand, right? It's all connected. But yeah, this is a baseline of which you need to be at in even order to heal. And so how long I know people who've suffered for years who refuse to go on thyroid hormone. And then finally they're like, all right, I'm tired of slowly dying. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was too.
Yeah,
You know?
totally. We have a question about ferritin. So someone is talking, she explains her journey. I'm going to skip through all of that to get to the point where she was trying to do, she knew that she had thyroid issues. She had a whole bunch of experiences. Finally, her doctor tested ferritin. Her ferritin came back at 16, which is low, of course.
Shite.
And so she wants to know what to do to raise the levels, which you just mentioned something, but I just want to give you the opportunity to close this loop if we need to.
Yes.
After 1 month on 4 different versions of iron, beef, spleen, iron tincture I made, iron pills, and herbal liquid iron, it hasn't moved up even a point. Yeah. So I know you just said this form of iron that needs, does that pretty much answer the question? Do we need to tie a bow around that for her?
Yeah, I'm going to actually clean it up and tell everyone what they should do and what Dr. Forsman would tell you to do. Okay, granted, I'm not an MD. This is not a medical consultation, right? Okay, so there's a million other factors in your life. I don't know what diseases you may have. I mean, right, okay. But barring all of that, the general protocol is this. If your ferritin is that low, that is a disaster. It is a effing disaster. And you need to address it immediately or nothing's going to get better. And you can't even take thyroid hormone because you'll have problems with that as well. So what do? Ferrous bisglycinate chelate. It usually comes, if it's like the Whole Foods brand, it comes in 25 milligram. If it's Bluebonnet, it comes in 18 and 27. For something as low as that ferritin, this is what you would do. You would take a 27 milligram pill with like 500 or 250 milligram of vitamin C at a meal away from thyroid if you're taking thyroid. Doesn't matter if you are or not. People have low ferritin. Doesn't matter if you're on other meds. Then you take that for like 5 days. Then you double it. 27 times 2. So 27 milligram pill times 2 in the same meal with just the same amount of vitamin C, 250 or 500. Stay there for 5 days. Now, it seems like a lot. It is, because that's such a low ferritin. You need to pummel the crap out of this. And then you add a third dose. So you add somewhere like lunchtime, a 27 milligram pill for 27 times 3. Now, if you go to Stop the Thyroid Madness, they would suggest that you would do even more, like 4 pills a day. But that's what you would do. And you would stay there for a while. You would get retested after 6 weeks once you get to that third dose. So you 27 times 3, but you're doing it 27 times 2 in one meal and then 27 in another meal, okay? With vitamin C both times. You don't increase the vitamin C, but whatever. And you stay there. And so maybe you're there at the 3rd week and the 4th week. Then you can get ferritin tested at 5th or 6th week, see where it's at. If it's raised significantly, let's say it gets up to 35, okay, you may drop the midday dose and then just do 27 times 2 for another 3-4 weeks, then get it retested. Where's it at now? Did it just go up to 45? All right, we're almost there. Maybe you take 27 times 2 for another 2 weeks, drop it down to 1. See what I'm saying? And people might need to re-listen to that. You can also go to stopthethyroidmadness.com, which is Janie Bowthorpe's site. They will talk about iron. Ferrous bisglycinate chelate. This is what people try to do. Oh, I'll just take this natural Floradix or cook out of an iron skillet. Let me tell you something. No amount of that is going to raise it. You actually need real iron. And this kind is the most absorbable. It will not make you constipated, but I will say the warning that anyone taking iron, you don't want to overshoot it. So set an iPhone alarm. Oh, time to get my ferritin tested. It's been 5 weeks. Okay, now you do another one. You don't want to just be like, oh, I've been taking iron for 6 months. Okay, so you don't want to do that. It takes a little while to raise ferritin. I had to do it twice. I had a ferritin of 10. I had restless legs and I passed out in a lobby of a spa because I could barely stand up. So that's danger zone. When you get down there, the bottom of the range is 10. So you really need to get it up. And doctors will discount you. If you're at 40, they'll be like, oh, you're fine. That's saying, oh, we see a slope here happening. And if you're hypothyroid, you don't really hold on to iron very well. So again, that goes hand in hand. So get your ferritin up, and then if that's good and thyroid's good, you're great. If the ferritin gets up and then you stop taking the iron and you don't feel any better after that, then you need to get on the thyroid thing. But you have to have the platform of ferritin. So that's kind of the way to do it. It's a bit aggressive, not as aggressive as some people would tell you to do. I took a lot of iron. The old wives' tale is about it constipating you. Not true, but it will turn your stools black and tar-like in appearance, meaning they will look like black tar, and that's okay. It's normal, but expect it because it's something if you've never taken iron.
It's different.
A few weeks later, you're like, am I dying? And you're not dying.
Not dying.
So
nobody's going to die.
I know that was a fad, but that's how you raise ferritin, and you can do it in a couple of months. It might take 3, 4, depending on your, what your situation is, but that's how you do it. So again, Bluebonnet is the brand, but the actual form is ferrous bisglycinate chelate, and Whole Foods makes their own kind too. And I think theirs is 25, so you just use those. Now, if you're at 40 and you want to raise it to 65, hey, maybe you only need to do a 27 milligram pill with a vitamin C at dinner once a day for a month or two, and that'll do it you know um but if you've had heavy bleeding and you've had any kind of that stuff, which usually goes hand in hand in thyroid, this is where the doctors fail, the uninformed doctors, because they don't test the iron and realize how related it is to the thyroid. So imperative
Yeah.
that you have proper ferritin levels.
Yeah. All right. Zamina, I think that's how you say her name, and Terry both asked a similar question. Is there a way to heal from Hashimoto's? In other words, to reverse the condition to the point of no need for thyroid medication?
100% absolutely. I know a lot of people who have, and if you'd like to look into someone in our space who's an author, Allie Miller, RD. She wrote the anti-anxiety diet. She was on Paleo FX keto panel with me. I just interviewed her recently. She was on medication at one point. She cleaned up a lot about her life and diet, and then she got off of it, and she doesn't need any of it. And her antibodies, her TPO antibodies, stay at about 10. I do know people who can have their antibodies at about 10 and not need medication to be okay, as long as they're not eating gluten. And Allie Miller is very dialed in to her diet, so that would make sense that she was able to do that. You absolutely can heal from Hashimoto's, but here's the thing. The fear I sense of, like, do I have to be on medication? Again, there we have that little comment there. Don't be afraid of that. You might have to have your Hashimoto's controlled with thyroid hormone for your whole life, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there also is the possibility to be on it for a while, clean up all the stuff like Misty and I were talking about, go off of it, and be able to be okay. And so you might want to contact and reach out to Allie Miller RD on Instagram or in general. And you can look forward to, I am going to be doing a video interview with her where she talks about that in a few weeks on the Primal Blueprint podcast. So you can just follow me on Instagram and wait for that interview to come out and check that out. I know people that had Hashimoto's antibodies between 10 and 14. And again, this is within range where people then will tell you don't have Hashimoto's. So the range sometimes is 0 to 35. And if you're anywhere in there, you're okay. Some people's antibodies are in the hundreds. But you want to get them to undetectable levels. That is the goal, or very low. And I've seen people with normal thyroid status on labs, but they're not feeling right. And all they did was change their lifestyle and diet for the Hashimoto's, and now they're feeling great, and they still have a level of 10, but the way that they feel is so different. And so people with Hashimoto's are really affected by foods, and I want to throw out, that's why it's really important to look into the autoimmune protocol, paleo autoimmune protocol. Nightshades, things high in histamines like cinnamon, can bug Hashimoto's people. Eggs, whether you're allergic to them or not, eggs are a thing. For Hashimoto's people, you might want to try to do an elimination on that. And then also gluten, for sure. Gluten, grains, and dairy. I mean, these things are all inflammatory. Hashimoto's, meaning I have antibodies for something. Antibodies equal inflammation, equal begetting more problems. So you do want to do your best to get the antibodies as low as possible. Some people can only do it through medication. Some people can do it through diet, and they feel great. So it's absolutely a possibility.
Yeah, there's also, and we're going to talk about this during the Ask Me Anything with Kaja Kynes tomorrow, Dr. Kaja Kynes, who wrote the Epstein Barr Solution. But she talks a lot about the connection between Epstein Barr and Hashimoto's. So sometimes doing an Epstein Barr protocol can massively help those that have Hashimoto's, and we'll get into that a little bit too.
And I know a lot of people with Hashimoto's and Epstein Barr that when they're treating the Epstein Barr through some supplements and other protocols, they are feeling better along with eliminating some foods and figuring that out. And who are on low thyroid or none. So absolutely, again, it's a comprehensive situation sometimes. And sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it's like you're tired for 2 weeks or a couple months. You go to the doctor, you find the right one. They put you on thyroid hormone and you're fine and you never had to do anything else. I mean, that happens too.
Yeah. I don't know many of those women, but I'm sure it does happen. Everything's possible. Okay, that's awesome. Let me check over here at the comments. There's lots of I love yous, lots of I love your book.
Oh, I love you guys.
Um,
Thank you so much. It makes all of my suffering worth it to help all of you. Spread the
I
word.
know. I know. I feel the same way. It's so redemptive to be able to share your experience and journeys with other women who are
I was an
struggling and
effing mess.
suffering.
So people watching who don't know me, I was a disaster. I was a total disaster in every way. My life was ruined for 6 years with this. I would cry multiple times a day. I could barely wear anything but sweatpants. I'm now 115 pounds. I'm 5 feet 2 inches tall, so I'm small. I went up to 160 while working out, trying to do everything I could. I was so fat and bloated. In my face. I had my hair was lost its curl. It was falling out. I woke up one morning. I'd be like, why do I have bangs? And like half your hair would break off in the middle of the night. Like constipated beyond to the point where laxatives wouldn't work. Skin thickening, inner itching of the ears, cracked heels and cracked skin. I mean, you guys, I was a total disaster. I got a fibroid and a polyp in my uterus. So listen, I mean, I may look happy and healthy now, but that's the whole point. I am. I'm really happy and I'm not hypothyroid. I'm doing great. And all it requires is that I take thyroid hormone, and then your body holds on to iron. I don't need to take iron anymore. My ferritin 65 and it stays there because I'm not hypothyroid. So my body can hold on to it. My
Mhm.
digestion is amazing. I have no gut issues. I honestly feel incredible. So I know
I was
everyone.
actually going to ask you that about the iron. So we supplement and we get to a certain point.
Then
Do
you
we need to,
stop.
once you get your iron stores where they need to be, then you stop?
You stop because, and that's the thing. That's why I said set an iPhone alarm. You don't want to endlessly take iron. Once you get your iron storages up, you're good to go, unless hypothyroidism persists and then it drops. See what I'm saying? So, for example, when I had the second bout of hypothyroidism, which was a reverse T3 situation, my iron dropped again in that time because I was hypothyroid. Here's why you don't hold on to iron. You make less hydrochloric acid when you chew the food, and then it's not breaking down the nutrients. You have gut issues. It's not absorbing. So, that's why it's like, oh, selenium, I'll take 2 Brazil nuts a day. Don't do that. That ain't going to work if you have compromised digestion. If you're a healthy person, that could be a good solution for selenium. And that's why the iron thing comes into play too. You really sometimes need to just go for the shelf pills. You can't go for the like, oh, herbal iron. Nah, you know what? I tried all that too. I can't even tell you the hundreds of dollars because I was afraid of iron back in the day. I thought, oh, these wives' tales, it's dangerous. I'm going to overdose or get constipated. And so I try to do all of these natural. And then you know what? It doesn't do the trick. It doesn't. So.
I was actually, you had mentioned something right before the iron thing that made me, um, something came up for me that it's come up in the community a couple of times, but it's not written down here.
EBV
Um,
iron.
oh, I don't remember.
HCl,
Oh, yes, I do remember now. Okay, thank you. That was perfect. So, if someone has a lot of gut healing to do, if they have leaky gut, if they're having trouble absorbing nutrients, is that going to affect their ability to absorb
yeah.
oral T3, T4,
Yeah,
NDT?
it can. It absolutely can. There is some conversion and things that happen in the gut.
Mm-hmm.
So in those situations, you could chew it up and swallow it. If you're uncompounded, you're screwed. You can't do that sublingually. There are some, and I'm not sure anymore because I'm not on NDT. I think it's still possible to chew up Natrithroid and Armor and do it sublingually. I had an initial suggestion in my book for that because at the time I wrote the book, I was taking my T3 sublingually, but I actually think that it's better to do it, and I think I did that because I had a compromised gut back in the day. So I just kind of kept doing that. It is better to chew it and swallow it. The gut issues will heal as the thyroid heals. It will never heal without proper thyroid status. And again, it's chicken egg. So you do your best on the gut if you're like avoiding thyroid hormone replacement, you do your best here and you do your best with what you can do. And if that doesn't get better, you are going to need thyroid hormone in order for the gut to heal. Almost immediately it would heal. Honestly. I mean, the constipation goes away pretty quickly when you get on thyroid hormone. It's just an indication of how things are
Mm-hmm.
working. So, some people take, for example, of taking T3 before like a lunch dose or something, and they'll chew it and just take that dose sublingually. So, sublingual is sometimes an option, but not for, I don't think for T4 synthroid, and I don't think for compounded, clearly. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think only desiccated and T3, like Cytomel, is chew upable. So that's one way around the gut stuff for a while is to do it sublingually. But again, just have to experiment with that personally. And I would just say you got to get to the bottom of the gut stuff. The gut stuff is so mouth to anus. And, aside from
It's a really
following the
important
diet.
part. It's come up a lot, the whole healing thing. And I know that when you kind of look at what you have to do to heal your gut and kind of the sacrifices you have to make related to your diet, um, it can be one of those things that you want to avoid doing. Or maybe do I have to do that? Can I get around it?
You
And
can't get around it.
all I can say, yep, you got to heal the gut for everything that's wrong with us. Flabby, foggy, and teague means you got to heal the gut.
You have
So,
to really almost always start there because that affects your brain too in every
of
way.
course.
And so again, but if it's not healing in a certain period of time, you still always check the thyroid. And again, if you're going to try to do everything naturally, that's good. But again, you can't. It will never get healed unless
Hmm.
thyroid is good. So if it gets healed quickly, you're like, okay, great. Then I'm just a normal person whose gut stuff was off and I screwed up my life and now I'm getting it back on track. But if it
Hmm.
doesn't, then you might need to take thyroid hormone and get the proper non-hypostatus stability to heal the gut.
Yeah. All right. We're going to wrap up with this last question that says, could you please repeat the name of your book? Tell us, Elle.
The Paleo Thyroid Solution. You can also go to my website, elleruss.com, ELLERUSS.com, and it says free thyroid guide. Click it. It'll tell you all the tests to take and more. It'll give you how to talk to a doctor, where to find a doctor in your state or country. It's a great free resource because you don't need to go. I mean, please, my book's cheap and awesome on Amazon and everywhere else, but there is a free thyroid guide there for you that really gives some juicy stuff because I bought 100,000 books. I spent so much money trying to figure this out. And I was just like, man, and the people that helped me were fellow patients that were doing it for free. So I wanted
Yeah.
to offer something really comprehensive that's free. There's podcasts in there with me talking to a doctor and some success stories in the thyroid guide. It's all there. So, please go to my website, elleruss.com, or purchase my book, The Paleo Thyroid Solution, on Amazon or Barnes & Nobles or anywhere you get your books.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us, Elle. I love having you on.
Thank you. And keep persevering, everyone. There is an answer, and perseverance pays. I didn't
Yes,
give up. I didn't give up, and I didn't listen to
that's
the
right.
BS when I knew it was BS. And I, granted, had to do it myself. For those that don't know, dosed myself back to health with thyroid hormones, which I don't want anyone to do. And that's why I wrote this book. And doctors are using it. And, we just need to get the word out there. So once you fix yourself too, you go and help others. And if you
That's
notice a
right.
symptom in someone, you say something.
Yeah, let's lift the boats together.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, Elle.
Bye.
Thanks everyone
Thank
for
you.
joining us. We'll see y'all.